Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jessica, and this week I am going to be cooking some breakfast bagels. I have been trying to figure out this bagel recipe to make them like the way that I want them. And anyway, so it just means I get to make a lot of bagels and test a lot of bagels. So that's a lot of fun. But I thought today with the bagels that I made, I would do like a little egg casserole type thing, just with some stuff that I have, to be totally honest. And I would bake that, and then that way I'd have something to kind of eat in between my bagels, make like a breakfast sandwich. And I think I may actually freeze one of them just to see like how that goes, like heating it up. I'm just gonna test my eggs super quickly. So if your eggs actually sink to the bottom, then they should be good to go. But if they ever float, I know some people will still use them. I do not. If they don't sink, I just don't use them. I don't know why, it just freaks me out. I always test all my eggs that are, from local farmers or anything like that. So there's 8 eggs, and I usually just do 8 eggs. And I'm gonna try something a little different. I'm actually going to mix everything and bake it in this little dish, like a little Pyrex dish, and just see if that is a little bit easier for like cleanup and things like that. We'll see. But I did actually wake up early this morning and went ahead and made my bagels. I just did the dough in the KBS bread machine. And I will say my dough was a lot stickier than I planned on it being. I did add a little extra water because I did 100% freshly milled flour. And I guess I just added too much, because I definitely had to add more flour to my dough and like get it to a decent consistency, because it was not wanting to hold up structurally. But I will link a bagel recipe below. In fact, I'll try to link 2 bagel recipes, one with freshly milled flour and then one without. My mom really wants to make pretzels, which I think might be one of our next tasks. I've made pretzels in the past, so I know it's very similar to making bagels. It's just been so long, I don't really remember. But anyway, yes, I got up this morning and I made huge bagels, by the way. They're ginormous. If you've ever watched Elf, they're absolutely ginormous, but they taste pretty good. I'll probably only use half of the bagel to put with these eggs, but they taste really good. So I'll link the recipe below. But for this, I'm using 8 eggs, and then I'm gonna use I'm just eyeballing it. I would say a half a cup, fourth of a cup to a half a cup of cottage cheese. I say you do you on the cottage cheese. Add what you want. And then I'm gonna add some salt and pepper, not too much. Okay, and I'm just gonna mix this up. And then I'm gonna I have some tomatoes, and I actually have a little bit of zucchini. So I think I'm going to cut both of those up and put that in here as well, which honestly is kind of my favorite combination. For some reason, I really like zucchini and tomatoes in my like egg dishes. It's just preference. But you could add anything here: peppers, onions, mushrooms. There's so many recipes for different types of things like this. I am just using what I have at my house. Actually, I wonder if there's like a Mexican style frittata with like black beans and stuff. I'll have to look that up. I just thought about that because I have a ton of black beans. So I would probably quite enjoy that. All right, I'm gonna cut up these tomatoes, get my zucchini, and then we'll get this in the oven at 350 until it doesn't jiggle anymore. It says like roughly 20 minutes. I'm gonna taste these, make sure. Yeah, they're still fine. I definitely wanted to use these because they are on their last leg. All right, so tomatoes are in. Let me get the zucchini. I'm actually gonna shred some of this zucchini and just press the water out of it really quickly. Okay, use the rest of this for dinner. I'm just gonna squeeze some of this water out. Get that in there. Just gonna mix this up. Make sure it is evenly distributed. I'm gonna put this in the oven and get it cooking. And then I will come back when I make them into breakfast sandwiches. Pretty excited about this. Okay, so this baked at 350 for actually 25 minutes. And I just wanna show you, basically you don't want it to wiggle in the middle. And then you can see the sides are just a little bit golden brown and crispy. And this will deflate a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna let this cool completely, and then we'll cut up our bagels and put these in it.
So the next morning, I happened to be feeling pretty bad. So I just decided to film it, and then I would just talk over it a little bit later because, like I said, just wasn't feeling my best. But basically I decided that since my bagels were so big, I was going to do like half a bagel and then cut my eggs into strips and use those strips to actually put inside the bagel. As you can see, it did stick to the side a little bit, but I have this really flimsy spatula that I bought off Amazon. It actually worked out great. It works for a lot of things randomly to be able to, bend like it does. It really just gets in there, but I'll link it below. But I was able to get up under the eggs and pull those out pretty easily. But I did decide to test one in the freezer, so I ended up wrapping it in saran wrap. I did wrap it twice. That's just what I do. Then I wrapped it again in tin foil. It's just kind of how I do things, how I was taught, so you don't get freezer burn or anything like that. And I wrote exactly what it was on the outside of it. Then I put it in the freezer, and with what I had, I went ahead and made myself a breakfast. And I did put a little bit of cheese, but I'll be showing you a little bit later in the video what I did when I took the breakfast bagel out of the freezer and how I heated it up. But honestly, these turned out delicious.
Okay, so I realized when I was editing for one of the previous videos that I made chocolate chip cookies, and I showed that I put them in the freezer, but then I didn't show what I did afterwards, like how I stored them, how I cooked them afterwards. So I guess that just means that I have to cook more cookies. So that's what I'm gonna do. I wanted to try some different cookies. So I am actually making a pumpkin chocolate chip cookie. I have never had a pumpkin chocolate chip cookie before. It got good reviews, 5 stars, so that's the one that I chose to follow. It's definitely different, and I know I say I'm excited about so many recipes, but it truly is because I'm excited. One of my favorite things to do is to try something new. So if I find a recipe that people just love, it gets me excited. Like I'm excited to try pumpkin chocolate chip cookies. I don't know. It's something I would have bought if I saw it at like a bakery or something. So we are going to make those, and then I'm going to show you what I do when I freeze my cookie dough so that I have like pre-made cookies that I can just pop one in the oven if I'm craving something sweet. The only thing different for this recipe, I am going to use freshly milled flour. So I'm gonna just kind of pay attention to the dough and see if I need to add a little bit more liquid. With freshly milled flour, sometimes you do need to. However, this one says it's kind of liquidy anyway. So I'll probably will just let it sit for 15-20 minutes and let that freshly milled flour soak up the moisture. And then I will show you what I do to pre-make my cookie dough and how I freeze it and all of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these, if I can put this on, there it goes. I'm gonna go ahead and get these mixed, and I'm gonna go ahead and cook a couple of them just to see what they taste like. And then we'll come back and I will show you how to put them in the freezer.
The longer I've waited, the more that I've tried. All the years that I've wasted trying to find it. All that I go through for my peace of mind. Let it all go out the window. No smoke in my eyes. I can hear the wind chiming. It's always been you in the back of my mind. Early blue morning, when everything's cold, I see you running, all covered in gold. There's nothing else that eases my soul. I let it all go out the window. No smoke in my eyes. I can hear the wind chiming. It's always been you in the back of my mind. When there are others, I do the routine.
Okay, so I just tasted these cookies while they were still warm. It is almost like a muffin. I'm gonna be real. It's like a very tall, like soft cookie. They're delicious, but to me it's almost cake-like, instead of like that flat cookie. I don't know if maybe you could leave the baking soda out or less baking powder and make them a little bit flatter, or just use a different recipe. But they're delicious, but they are definitely like more of a cake type cookie. I realized the best description for these is like the top of a muffin. That's what these taste like. Like if you just did the tops, bake the top of the muffin.
Okay, so it is the next day, and I am a little bit under the weather, so forgive the raspy voice, but I think everyone is with the allergies going, with all the stuff blooming and everything. But anyway, moving on, I wanted to show you what I do after I freeze my cookie dough. So I take Ziploc bags and then I write what it is, and then I put the directions, like how to cook it. Now with the directions, I put the directions of like exactly how they say to bake it, you know, per the recipe. However, I have found that sometimes when I am cooking cookies or something out of the freezer, sometimes I need it to, like, sometimes I cook it at a little bit lower temperature for just a little bit longer. So the first time I try a recipe, I do it exactly how it says to do it, but then I may actually alter the directions a little bit, you know, based on that. So my chocolate chip cookies that I made 2 videos ago, I actually, when I pull those out of the freezer to cook, I put them on the baking sheet frozen, and then I cook them at 325 for about 14-ish, 13, 14 minutes, which is a little bit different than the original recipe calls for. So I kind of play with it. I try to do it the first time the way it says to do it. And then after that, see if they're, you know, like if the middle doesn't bake the way I want it to, or maybe the edges melt and burn a little bit, something like that, then I know, like, let's lower the temperature a little bit and cook it a little bit longer. So you can kind of play with it that way. But I do try to write everything on here so that if someone wants to pull this out, or I just forget for whatever reason, I will have the directions right there, you know, on how to cook them. So 350 degrees for 11 to 13 minutes. Now, usually I try to give it, you know, 12 hours minimum. But I mean, once, like, basically I just do it the next day. If I make cookies and I freeze some of these, the next day I try to get them into Ziploc bags. I'll be interested to see how these actually cook frozen or from frozen, because they're so different than any cookie like that I've ever baked. Like, I've always baked like kind of thin cookies, and these were definitely more cake type cookies. I'll tell you, allergies are awful this year. I've never even dealt with allergies that much, but this year, this has been getting me. I have cookies ready to go in the freezer, so all I have to do is pull them out if I want 1 or 2 or whatever for a little sweet treat. Already ready to go. So, and I am going to bake some of those right out the freezer, so I'll be able to tell you later in the video if it, you know, if I think just to do it like the way it calls for. I took these out of the oven at 13 minutes at 350, and they were, I mean, almost ready, but not quite there. So I actually put them back in. I broke this one in half, but I put them back in for 2 more minutes. So a total of 15 minutes, and they feel much better. So that's what I mean about, you might have to change the baking time just a little bit. I think because they came from frozen, they just needed a few more minutes, but they look pretty good now. To reheat my bagel, I took it out the night before and put it in the fridge, and then I've been trying not to use the microwave, so I just put it in a little sheet pan and baked it at 350 for 10 minutes. Honestly, it was delicious, and I highly recommend it.
I can hear the wind chiming. It's always been